The Cheating Death Podcast is a comedy podcast that talks about anything and everything, providing objective information into each and every situation. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. You may email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. On today's episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, we discuss the Culling conspiracy, yes, the depopulation agenda. We also provide an all-new Annihilation Announcement, an all-new joke of the episode, and a top 5 list of our favorite Beck B-sides. So, by this time, you know what to do, dear listener. Grab yourself a coffee, grab your favorite blanket, put your feet up, and let us tell you how you can cheat death. This is your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this is your Annihilation Announcement. We go into our lives every day upon waking, only to be fed advertisement after advertisement, suggestion after suggestion, purchase after purchase, medication after medication, meal after meal. All for what? All for us to leave this earth with nothing as we entered? All for us to hopefully reach a high score by the end of our lives before our very existence is extinguished and our memory is erased? Why? Why is that something that we as a society try so hard to achieve, only to realize that in a lot of cases that you are stuck in an inescapable maze, one that is filled with conspiracy, controversy, and calamity? Understand, dear listener, you are not alone. If you've lost a family member and it has not felt right, you may be onto something. However, we do not wish to provide false inspiration or false hope. Just note that your gut, your instinct, is almost never wrong. This has been your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this has been your Annihilation Announcement. Willkommen, meine Freunde. Guten Morgen, guten Tage und eine gute Nacht. Ist deine Reisende und deine Ausländer, deine Allesfresser, deine Cleric of Chaos. Du bist Gebrochen. Spring mit mir. On today's episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, dear listeners, we provide you with insight into what is known colloquially as the Culling conspiracy. This is an agenda that people believe is being put into motion across countries and continents across the world that specifies and focuses predominantly on the depopulation of the world, the deconstruction of certain countries, the reduction of birth rates, the removal of the elderly, and those in whom may not be physically or mentally capable to get by without at least some form of government assistance. Ladies and gentlemen, this is 2026. Over the course of time, we have been led to believe that survival of the fittest is the most important element to survival and to evolution of the human species. Then we, as a species, collectively decided within the past 125 to 150 years to ensure that our citizens were safe in the event of an injury, in the event of a mental breakdown, in the event of losing your home, your finances, and your way of life. And there used to be what used to be categorized as a social safety net in the United States of America, in Canada, in Mexico, and in most of Europe. However, though they still exist, there are now more barriers to them. There are now more caveats. There are now more obstacles. There are now more forms. There are now more red tapes that you must unravel and unwind in order to get through. We look at this as an understanding that in order to move forward, you have to produce, you have to contribute to society. And as someone who has contributed to taxes in 3 different countries over the past 25 years, ever since the wee age of 12, 13, we can tell you this, dear listener. The amount of people who are still suffering despite earning a decent wage are absolutely exponential. So you take into consideration the amount of stress the population continues to go through on a day-to-day basis. You start to see for yourself just exactly how many people are breaking down, not only mentally but physically. People getting injured, people accumulating respiratory and cardiovascular illnesses, people accumulating cancers at a rapid rate. And what is the solution? Here in North America and in most of Europe, there are a lot of things that used to be done. You used to be able to go to an emergency room or to your family doctor, and they would set you up with a sequence of specialists and tests to see exactly what could be done. It used to take a couple months maximum, and everything used to be fine, at least for the most part. However, now, in my home of Leipzig, in my home of Eastern Germany, there is a severe dichotomy between how my homeland operates and how my mother's homeland of Canada operates. Germany, in most cities, is a smooth-oiled machine, precise, efficient, and just absolutely outstanding attention to detail and commitment to good quality service. In Ontario, Canada, it is an absolute nightmare for most people to acquire even the most basic medical services. There are people here with over $200,000 in savings who still can't find a family doctor. There are people here who earn $500,000 a year who still can't find a family doctor. You take into consideration the federal government and their recent decision to implement the MAID program, or the Medical Assistance in Dying program, on a wider scale, and you have more fuel to add to the fire of the Culling conspiracy. Now, you take a look at just how many people are overworked, overburdened, underpaid, and how that has progressed over the course of the past 18 years since the 2008 crash. And year by year, it doesn't matter who's in office politically, it doesn't matter which side of the political table is representing provincial or federal office, it all follows the same routine. It all follows the same choreography. It all follows the same script. Absolutely nothing happens in Canadian politics that are unscripted. There are no, oh goodness gracious, this is quite an off-the-cuff moment. There's absolutely none of that here. Back home in Germany, everything, once again, is pristine, it is precise, it is machine-like to the nth degree. However, whenever it comes to how they deal with people, it is night and day. If what is going on in Ontario were happening in Germany or in France right now, they would have revolted time and time again. When you take into consideration that the amount of people who are dying in hospitals and who are dying waiting for surgeries, and you take the amount of people who are aware of these deaths and you combine it into a nice little recipe to make it a conspiracy, it becomes a little bit more complex than that. It becomes a little bit more difficult to identify and to explain the specifics. So you have to break it down industry by industry, reason by reason. One of the primary reasons that all of this is happening is for the past 25 years, different countries have been poaching Canadian medical graduates, both as family doctors, specialists, and so on. Not necessarily because the graduates don't want to remain in Canada, but because both the federal and provincial governments make it nearly impossible for doctors to not only earn a comfortable living wage, but it isn't an hourly structure, it isn't a salary structure. It is very similar to a piecework style structure. That is one of the main reasons become a doctor is not something people do for the sake of having to aggressively seek your own clientele. People generally become a doctor so they can work in a hospital or so they can open their own practice where it's needed so people come to them. They don't want to be operating like a cold calling business, reaching out to people and essentially offering them medical services. No. So when you take that into account, these Canadian doctors and these Canadian medical professionals, they move to different countries. American doctors are offered exquisite amounts of money by European entities and by East Asian entities to do the very same work that they would be doing in America, but for whatever reason, they just can't be bothered to pay them the money that they have earned. So therefore, you have a lack of personnel, registered nurses, registered practical nurses, or, RNs, RPNs, or in the States, you have your licensed vocational nurses and you have your licensed nurses. There's a severe shortage of medical staff everywhere, so therefore services are going to suffer. Hospitals in Ontario are operating on debt. They are literally going into further credit debt in order to operate because the provincial government here has essentially slashed medical funding once again. In most states, there are a lot of issues with people being able to acquire the medical care they need because they simply cannot afford it, whether it be due to a lack of insurance or due to a non-capability to pay the insurance back. Therefore, naturally, you're going to have a system where a lot of people are going to be suffering. You have a system that is broken. You have a very complex and needlessly difficult labyrinth of systems that are designed to crush the consumer and designed to eradicate them. It isn't a question about whether or not it's a conspiracy. It's a question about how long are we going to put up with our relatives, our friends, those we care about passing away when they don't need to? How long is it going to be before North America revolts? We don't have the answer for that, but what we do hope is that you, dear listener, you stay safe, you stay warm, you stay beautiful, and you keep fighting to blaze your own trail. Thank you for tuning in today. Provide your feedback at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. Today's joke has been brought to you by the Cleric of Chaos. A friend of mine got really disappointed recently when he came to me with some news that his hermit crab, he wouldn't volunteer to help put up the holiday decorations. And I said, Ted, of course he won't. He's a little shellfish. At the top of today's episode, we promised you a list of our top 5 favorite Beck B-sides, so let us take a side. On number 5 being Necessary Evil, a B-side from the Modern Guilt album. Coming in at number 4, we have Ghetto Chip Malfunction, a B-side from the Guerrolito album. Coming in at number 3, we have Ship in a Bottle, hidden track number 13 from the 2002 album Sea Change. Coming in at number 2, we have Vampire Voltage, another B-side from the beautiful Modern Guilt album. And coming in at number 1, a solo rare release track called Defriended. What are your top 5 favorite Beck B-sides? Email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. Depopulation, the culling of the masses, is not necessarily a conspiracy. The reality behind the global situation is that a lot of countries, when it comes to trying to mix health infrastructure and care for growing populations, a lot of things often fall by the wayside. Is there a grand plan to annihilate the vast majority of humanity? Perhaps. Maybe that is indeed what COVID was. But for now, all we have is the objective information that is in front of our eyes until more is revealed, we are only able to surmise so much. Thank you for tuning in today. Take care of yourselves and each other. The Cheating Death Podcast has been brought to you by Nach dem Leben CRDVC, Cleric of Chaos, and where all major podcasts can be found on all major platforms. If you'd like to support the program, you may do so at the links in the podcast and the episode's description. If you or anyone you know is experiencing psychiatric duress, domestic violence, or any other situation that puts them in danger, please consult the telephone numbers listed in the episodes and in the podcast's description as well. If you are looking at adopting a playful puppy or a cute kitten, please visit your local animal adoption rescue center. And remember, dear listener, life is hard. No one is going to tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Resilience, patience, and courage are your best friends. Remember, we're pulling for you. We're all in this together.